This entire verification process literally took us 2 days, 1 day really, because usually when you submit for verification, it's a Monday through Friday deal, so they don't work on the weekend. So if you submit on Friday like we did, then usually you have a period of time like Saturday and Sunday that nothing's getting done, and then they kick back off again on Monday. So we submitted on Friday in the morning, and we got verified on Monday. I think a lot of you guys are failing because you're just doing way too much, and you're providing way too much information, more information than you probably need to the reviewers. The very first thing that I want to say before I jump into the actual process, because it's a few steps, is I want to say that the only goal of you submitting for registration is to get approved. That is the one and only goal. So in order for you to get approved, we need to just make it easy for the person on the other end to approve us. That's pretty much it. We're not going to be providing more information than we need, and we're not going to be missing information in order for us to be approved. Now, with that being said, I want you guys to kind of take a look at this picture here, because the people, the regulatory agencies that you're submitting this to are like any other government agency. They are employing government employees, and if you know anything about government agencies, government employees, just like the DMV, they're not the most effective. Some of those people are miserable and they hate their job, and it really depends on who you're going to get on the opposite end of the counter there. In addition to this, they're overworked and they're underpaid. And you oftentimes get a room full of people going to the front of the line, like what you see in this picture here, people filling out paperwork the day of when they were supposed to have all this completed to begin with. People with wrong information to the front of the line, people with missing documents, people with additional information, people that are just irrelevant going to the front. And so depending on who you get as a reviewer, sometimes they may stamp you and say, I don't care, you're approved. But a lot of times what they'll do is they'll send you to the back of the line. So in order to avoid this, we only want to show up and give them the information that they want, nothing more and nothing less. The other thing that seems to be floating around is people with all these sorts of requirements and criteria. A lot of those folks can't even point to the proper resources that gave them that information or where they got that. And so this right here, campaign registry, I'm going to link to the resources that I found online. But if you go straight to the source right here, they've got a bunch of videos in here that shows you about campaign registration, TCR vetting process, and a bunch of FAQs, and even give you some downloadable information that talks to you about TCR user guides, including kind of what they're looking for, what best practices are, etc. You can learn more about what the regulations are, what they're looking for, etc. through here. Read through it, summarize it, and you can get a pretty good understanding of really what they're asking for. Basically, all they want you all they want you to prove is that you have explicit consent from somebody to be able to text message them using an application. And as of 2025, they want explicit consent per application usage. That means that, if you're going to do promotional items like restaurants do, oftentimes they send weekly menu items, specials or whatever, then they want you to say that. If you're going to do transactional, which is about 90 to 95% of small businesses, that's what you're going to do, transactional, basically appointment reminders, callback, text, follow up, that kind of stuff, then that's what you need to do. They don't want you to ball everything together because there's different use cases. Now, does that mean that if you decide to use transactional, you're not going to be able to do marketing with the same number? It's not what that means. You can always register a second number just for that. You can register a third number. You can ball it in together depending on your business model. So these are the links I'm going to put in the description. You can go ahead and read them, find the information straight from the source rather than from somebody who's, can't point to the source of how they came up with a document. All right, so now with all that out of the way, there are some prerequisites that we have to have in order for us to submit registration. First and foremost, we need to make sure that you have a website with a web form, or you need to create one, because if we are requesting explicit consent to text people, more than likely it's going to come from a web page. And so you need to make sure that your web page is compliant. That web page must have a private policy page and a terms of service page. And in that terms of service page, there needs to be some sort of SMS verbiage that tells them what you're going to do with your messaging, guidelines, that kind of thing. Every form that you have on your website also must have opt-in verbiage. It doesn't really matter if you're not going to use that form to collect information. That form has to have some sort of opt-in language. In addition to this, you must have an EIN in order for to submit for a phone number verification. I'm going to give you an example of a website, and this is probably 9 out of 10 of you, 9 out of 10 small business owners, 9 out of 10 service businesses. And if you're an agency providing this kind of service for your clients, you need to make sure that the very first step is that their website is compliant. Now, I just Googled Houston plumber here, and I'm just going to pick from one of the results in here so you can kind of see what 9 out of 10 local business owners' websites will look like. Now, on the surface, this might look okay, but this is a completely non-compliant website. If I click on schedule a call, you can see that I have a form in here that's asking for a phone number, and yet there's no compliance verbiage in here. There's nothing that tells me that they're going to text me or anything like that. Now, I understand this may not be the form that you're using for opt-in, but the fact that you're asking for a phone number now requires that you have some sort of verbiage in here that says that you may communicate with somebody via that phone number. The other thing that you're going to notice here is that there is no private policy and there's no terms of service in here. So out of the gate, if you submit verification and this is the website that you're sending people to, the verifiers to, you are going to get denied. This is a non-compliant web form, and they tell you specifically that your web form must be compliant. This is a non-compliant web form. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on another website in here so you can see the difference between what a compliance website looks like in a non-compliance one. This is another one, and again, I'm not affiliated with any one of these folks. These are just examples that I'm using. If I click on book now, you see that they have a form. They're asking for phone number and email and all that stuff, and they actually have an explicit an opt-in that I can check in here by submitting this information. I'm agreeing to these people reaching out to me via text, message data may apply, etc., etc. I also have information in here on private policy and their terms of service, which they've labeled do not sell my personal information, kind of things in there. So this is what a compliance form looks like. Now, if you're doing this yourself or you're doing it for clients, we all know that 9 out of 10 times we really don't have access to the client's website. Sometimes the client doesn't even have access to their own website to be able to make changes like this on a form. The form can take forever. Sometimes they don't even, have a web guy. They build these sites on free Wix accounts that they can't really modify. And for that reason, we've built our own process, our own sort of funnel inside of GoHighLevel so that we're able to get verification fairly fast. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. We're going to walk through the entire process. Now, the funnel that I have is basically a 3-step funnel. It's very simple. All that it has is an opt-in page for people to request information with the right verbiage. It has a private policy and it has a terms of service page that is specific for SMS. And let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to open it in another tab in here. And as you can see, I have basically the company logo. I have a first, last name, phone number, service details, and then what's important in here is this here. And what has changed here in 2025 and beyond that's tripping people up is that they want you to separate what the intent is. Now, remember what our goal is. Our goal is to get approved. Our goal is not to tell people what we're going to do or what we plan to do with everything and anything under the sun. It's like going to the DMV. Your goal when you go to the DMV and take your driver's license exam is to pass the exam. It's not to tell the reviewer that you want your driver's license so you can drive down the highway at 80 miles an hour. You can pick up your friends and go to a party and, do all kinds of crazy things in your car, because then they may not give it to you, right? They may deny you. So a lot of you are failing right here because you're doing way too much. You're providing way too much information. So in my case, and like I said, in 90 to 95% of the cases, you want to get up and running real fast, and you want to get up and running with those businesses really fast. Transactional text, appointment reminders, those kind of things, the automations with GoHighLevel so that business doesn't get tripped up. So that's exactly what I'm doing in here. By submitting this form, I agree to receive text messages from Science Digital. These messages may include project-related updates, appointment reminders, and other important project-related information. Now, notice that I stop right there. I don't talk about marketing messaging. That requires a completely additional box. I don't talk about, These are going to be notifications about pins and passwords and all that. That completely requires a separate item in there. A lot of you are trying to put all that in one message, and this is where you're failing. I also am not being very vague. I'm not saying and other text messages and more and possibly emails and possibly phone calls and possibly everything else. This is text message exclusivity only, because A2P is for text messaging only. So that's exactly what I'm including in here. I also have the verbiage that says, I understand that text message and data rates may apply, and you can opt out of this by texting the word stop or replying stop, or by contacting us directly. The other thing that I have in here is a private policy and a terms of service page that has SMS specific verbiage. In fact, my terms of service page only has SMS verbiage on it. And because of this, I can use this funnel to submit to them, because I may not have access to my client's website. I can submit this to the reviewers to let them know this is where people actually are opting in. Now, before we get started submitting this, there's one more piece of information that we need, and we need to be able to gather our EIN information. The EIN information comes from your client. You can just simply ask him for the EIN number that the state gave them when they registered for an EIN. And what you need to do is go to that state's website, and you need to plug in that EIN or look for a business search to find the matching name of that business. I like to do this because oftentimes this paperwork was issued to them maybe 10-15 years ago, and since then they've moved businesses, they moved locations, maybe even in a different state or county or whatnot, and they have gone and updated this without really them even knowing that they've updated it. And a lot of times what happens is that this paperwork that they give you doesn't match what's on the state. You have to make sure that the state address matches that EIN, and you're going to use whatever is on the state level. Now we're coming back here to our funnel once you have that, and I typically go to settings, and I'm going to click on add domains. And what our process is like is we create and we add a domain for all of our clients. So we have one main domain, and then we add subdomains for each one of our clients. This may look something like this. So let's say I have a domain called jobrequest.com. And if I acquire a client and the client's business name is Mike's Tree Removal, I go and create a subdomain called mikestreeremoval.jobrequest.com. If I have another client, maybe labeled John's Plumbing, I'll go ahead and create another subdomain called John's Plumbing .jobrequest.com. And that's what I'm going to use to add to my funnel here, my form, so that this form becomes live and I can put it in this address over here in the bar, and everyone can get to it publicly. And the way to do that inside of GoHighLevel is go to the domain settings. You're going to click add domain, and I'm just going to say connect to a funnel or website. I'm going to click connect, and I'm going to plug in my domain. So in other words, it's going to be client name dot yourdomain.com, and I'm going to continue, and this is going to create the DNS settings if you're on GoDaddy or if you are on Cloudflare. Now, if you're not on GoDaddy or on Cloudflare, you're on a different host or whatnot, and you don't have access to your client's website, just go and get a domain for $10 and use it for pretty much all your clients. It's exactly what we do here. Once we have that, you are going to have a website like this that can be publicly accessible with an actual URL domain that goes to it, and this is going to serve as our opt-in form for the A2P process. So now we're going to go ahead and submit for verification now that we have all those pieces. And one thing that I do want to talk about is that there's a lot of information floating around that says that this business profile inside of GoHighLevel has to match exactly the next steps, and you have to put all the information in here. And that's not necessarily true. As you can see, this is a dummy account, and I've got a business friendly name in here because what we do is we register a bunch of these accounts, and when clients come on, we bring them on, we let them use that texting number until the verification process gets taken care of for them on their end, so we don't lose any traction to begin with. You can kind of see there's no information in here. But what we're going to do is go to the left hand side and then go to phone numbers, and we're going to buy a phone number. So this account is blank. We're going to click on that number. We're going to click on that phone number. And since I'm registering for a toll-free number, I am going to uncheck local numbers, and I'm going to apply, and I'm going to find a toll-free number that I like, something that sticks out. And if you guys are wondering why do toll-free numbers versus local numbers, Really, my business model is not SaaS. My business model is providing Facebook ads for clients. And with that, we give them a high-level account. We start with these toll-free numbers. And if clients stick around to the end or they want to use high-level in other pieces of their business, then we go ahead and re-register a local number for them. So this allows us to get up and running real fast. However, the verification process for the local numbers, it's pretty similar. The only thing that's different is that you have to provide a couple more messaging prompts before you submit the registration. But aside from that, everything else is pretty much the same. All right, now that I bought this number, I can go ahead and register by clicking this verify this toll-free number here. Or if I close this out, I can come back over here and I can click on this verification required triangle right besides the number. Now, when I click on that, this is where the company's information from the EIN is going to come in handy. You're going to go ahead and plug in all the things that are there. So the company's legal name, just like it is on the state, and the EIN paperwork, that should match. If there's a mismatch, use whatever the state has, because that's going to be the most current record. You're going to have to put the URL of the business. If you put a URL, a business website in here that is non-compliant, you are going to fail this process, okay? There's, all kinds of stuff that people say to do, but basically it's pretty straightforward. It's telling you what you need to do in here. I'm going to plug in all my customers' data in here, and then I'm going to click continue. Once I click continue, I'm going to get to the other step 2 of 3, which is business location, and you're going to plug your client's business address in here. Once you do that, you're going to get to the final step, and this is where it's asking you for the compliance information, basically what you're going to be using this number for, and to give some examples of use cases. Now, these are examples. These are not going to be set in stone. If you decide later on to use this number for alerts, then you can use it for alerts. If you decide to use it for a little bit of marketing, then you can do that as well. If you decide to go heavy on the marketing, then I recommend you register a completely different number just for marketing, just like every other company does. But I'm going to show you what I do here, so you can follow along with this process. Very first thing is I always choose about 1,000, more or less. Use case is customer care. The opt-in that I use here is a web form, and this is where I feel a lot of people go crazy and make a mistake. You're providing too much information. You're going to go and click a bunch of these things, and then you don't have a use case or a piece of the requirements that match those things. So I like to keep everything simple. This is what I'm going to be doing, and then I have a very specific verbiage that I put in here. So I copy this and I go and I paste it in here. And basically all this says is that this number is going to be used to send appointment confirmation, information, reminder messages to our customers once they have booked an appointment with us on our website or opted in to receive SMS notifications from Science Digital LLC, or whoever your client is. A lot of you guys make a mistake to put stuff in here like and promotional items and other things and other text messages, and nobody knows what that is. Keep it simple, keep it concise, keep it consistent. The next thing that I do is I copy the other example message that I'm going to be using, and I put that in here. A few things that are required. Number 1, the name of the person who is going to be sending that information if it's your client, and then the name of the company that you have in here. So I'm just going to say the same thing. Actually, whatever company you use in here is the one that should match, this section right there. Okay, and everything else stays the same. Thanks for requesting your appointment reminder. We'll reach out to you via email shortly. The last thing that we need to do is provide a screenshot of the opt-in form, and it tells you right here it must be a publicly accessible URL. So basically what we're going to do is go to our opt-in form that we have in here, the one that we set up with our subdomain, and we're going to take a screenshot of this. This is what mine's going to look like, and I typically, just kind of add an arrow in there. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I've always done it this way. And I go ahead and I save this as a JPEG. Then I upload that screenshot to Google Drive, and once I do this in Google Drive, I go ahead and click the 3 dots. I click share, and I make sure that this is a public link. So what you want to do is not click to copy the link. You want to click on share, and you want to make sure you click on general access, highlight that, and make sure that that is not restricted or within your organization, and you click this link that says, anyone with the link can access it, and then copy that link. Then I open an incognito window and I just paste that link in there just to make sure that it's working. And if I can access it here in incognito, then they can access it on their side without logging in. I take that link and I go here and I paste it in there just like that, nothing else. Once I do this, I just verify that all my information is correct. I click agree to terms of service and I send this for verification. Now I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of a recap and provide the links and some resources and go over a few things that may help you guys resolve this issue, because I have a feeling that a lot of you guys are failing on just semantics, really. You're doing too much. The number one reason I think people are failing, based on all the clients that I've seen, based on people that I've helped that have failed this, is that you're doing too much. You're providing way too much information. You're showing up to the DMV with all kinds of stuff that you don't need to show up with. The number one goal is for you to get approved. In order for you to get approved, you got to make it easy for the human on the other end who's processing thousands of applications to approve you. They have very specific guidelines, and Twilio and the regulators have also given us some information that can help us. Number one, okay, you have to make sure that your website is compliant. So yes, if you're a small business owner, a plumber, Mike's Tree Service, Joe's, lawn care, whoever, you have to have a website, and that website has to be compliant. That means it can be, that means it has to have a private policy. It has to have a terms of service, and that terms of service must include some sort of SMS disclaimer notification on it at some point. Okay, it's 2025. If you don't have a website, it's super easy to get one within GoHighLevel as well. You can even host it for free within GoHighLevel, set up all the pages, etc. Okay, every single form on your website, whether it's going to be used for opt-in or not, whether it can be an entry point or not, needs to have the SMS verbiage on it. Most of you, when I say most of you, I mean 9 out of 10 of you, okay? Small business owners, service providers, home service businesses, you're going to be doing transactional communication. You're going to be texting leads, managing workflows, that kind of stuff. Okay, so you're going to have that. And you have to have an EIN in order for you to get approved. Now, let me give you some resources and let me go through Twilio. Okay, so this information is available. I'm going to link through it below to help you guys kind of go through it. And if you go to the A2P 10DLC campaign approval requirements, and this is straight from one of the approvers themselves, you can kind of see what they're asking you for. Okay, so the message flow, this is the description of the campaign, and they tell you that the primary purpose of that is to make sure that you are disclosing messages and programs and things that are going through third party, and they give you requirements of that as well. The biggest issue I think is for you guys is in campaign description and in the disclaimers. Under the campaign description, it says provide a clear, comprehensive overview of what the campaign objective is going to be, and they give you an example. If the campaign pertains to loan arrangements or direct lending, specify that so that they know this campaign is going to be used for loan requirement and lending. Just like what I said in my other original document here, this number is going to be used to send appointment information, confirmation, reminders, messages to customers once they have booked an appointment with us on our website and opted in to receive SMS notification. Notice that I don't include in here also promotional materials. Notice that I don't include in here to receive SMS notifications and other messages. Like, what is that? You're being very vague. The only purpose of this number is once they submit information on my website for appointment reminders, project-related stuff, for us to communicate back and forth. That is it. If you're going to be using this number also for marketing, go ahead and get another box, use that, put what that's going to be for, and people have to now opt into both of them. Sometimes, based on your verbiage here alone, you're failing these campaigns because you're trying to put too much. Now, does this mean, in my experience, that if you register a number right now just for transactional stuff, you can't use it for marketing later? That's not what that means. Again, we're just trying to get approved. I've got numbers that are registered for transactional SMS only, and then later on we've used them for promotional stuff, and they're just fine, as long as we're not abusing the system, right? The other things in here, terms and condition, right? You have to have a publicly accessible terms of service page. Opt-in message, you need to have that as well, right? You need to have people be able to opt in. You need to have data rates may apply. They tell you exactly what we need to have. You need to identify the brand. So thank you for submitting information. This is Mike's for Mike's Tree Services. That's what that looks like right there. Here's another example of failed campaigns, and I think that in a lot of cases, people use this verbiage. This campaign sends messages to customers who opt in. Messages for what? Messages to who? Specifically for what kind of projects? Okay, that's why those kind of things would fail. They have no consistency, no context behind it. If you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys on the next one.